terms of a recap, we covered chapter 3, verse 15 last time. So I'm going to show two things that will serve as a bit of a recap for some of that content before we get into today's verse, as well as some other activities. So if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about chapter 3, verses 13 and 14. 13 was about, offering food first to God, getting grace, and then receive prasad or the grace of God before consuming it for oneself. We shall look at a video for about 4 or so minutes that will get us into chapter 3, verse 15, which was last week. Talks about the Vedas. We talked very briefly about those, and that also helps set the stage for a little bit of the context of today's chapter 3, verse 16. So for that...
Just like when you get a machine, you have a manual that explains how to use it. Similarly, God has sent us into this world, and He has the manual, which is the sacred book, right? And then there are the teachers, which are the prophets who came down. So religious traditions around the world have had their sacred book. So what is the book of the Hindus? The book of the Hindus is the Vedas. So there must be some knowledge that has existed ever since God has existed. Our scriptures say that eternal knowledge of God is the Vedas.
Evam pravartitam chakram nanu. Let's look at some important words here. The first word I want everybody to see is pravartitam. Pravartitam means set into motion. O Parth, those who do not accept their responsibility in this cycle of sacrifice established by the Vedas are sinful.
Chakra or cycle means an ordered series of events. The cycle from grains to rains has been described in verse 3.14. All members of this universal wheel of action perform their duties and contribute to its smooth rotation.
Explained in the translation, Sri Krishna is continuing this dialogue with Arjun, and here he addresses him with a different appellation that we've seen before, Parth, which in this case is the son of Pritha, Pritha being another very noble name for his mother Kunti. So he's addressing him as O Parth. So we talked about the cycle of rains and grains. Now we're talking about this universal wheel, Swamiji says, which is a wheel of action, so that we all are doing our duties systematically. And so we have these 8 questions one by one. Obviously on chapter 3, recent verses. And in the Bhagavad Gita, what does yagna refer to?
But those who enjoy what is given to them without making offerings in return are verily thieves.
Awesome.
Very, very good. Yep, that's absolutely right. Thank you, Prajne. Gopi Prem Divas celebrations. Last week, Valentine's Day equivalent, Gopi Prem Divas, or the Mere Nandan Nandan Bhajan. The reason we put this in is because, again, to sound a little pedantic maybe or trivial, but these were mentioned in the weekly notes document that we've been sending out.
Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Tomorrow is our Sunday satsang. That is the most important thing for tomorrow. And that is one thing which Swamiji Maharajji says, that slowly, of course, we do understand this wisdom. But through this wisdom, in the end, what are we learning? We are learning to go on the Bhakti Yoga path.
It's on the Radha Krishna Temple of Dallas portal website, as well as through the YouTube channel. Starts at 10:30 a.m. Central Time, so 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time, 10 p.m. Indian Time, and usually goes for about 1.5 to 2 hours. As Pallaviji said, join as much or as little as you can, but making that small step is certainly helpful.